January 1st, 2013. I started my business in 2012, and it was New Year's Day, and I was looking at how much I had made over the course of 2012, feeling pretty good about myself. My mother came into the kitchen, and she looked at me, and she said, "What are you doing today?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to take it easy. It's New Year's Day." "Yeah, shouldn't you be working?" "Ma, I made money. Look at the money I made for 2012. "Yeah, that was last year. Get back to work." So that's why I am very prolific in just getting in there as a Chicagoan and working. My mother appears in a lot of my stories. She is a huge factor in who I am as an individual. What I didn't realize is how much my father actually had in me understanding how to promote my own personal brand. So my father was also a pharmacist. Both my parents were pharmacists. And I remember stories he told me about in the 1960s. He worked at a little hotel called the Sheraton Chicago, now the International Hotel on Michigan Avenue. I got my Chicagoan right there, on Michigan Avenue in downtown Chicago. And he ran, by and large, a gift shop. It was a little drugstore within the hotel. And you're talking one man, one pharmacist, in a drugstore. And there were a lot of celebrities that came in the drugstore or into the hotel to stay because it was right on Michigan Avenue. Now, celebrities back then are a lot like celebrities now in that they would normally send their managers or their assistants down to get things. My father developed a reputation where he would help these individuals, and they would actually come down themselves to talk to my dad. Again, one pharmacist in one drugstore on Michigan Avenue. People like Muhammad Ali, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Carol Channing would seek out my dad when they stayed at the Sheraton Chicago because he was a trusted advisor. And just as a little side note, Carol Channing used to tell my dad, "Stanley, I'm going to write a song about you." And my dad thought, "That's okay, sure. Of course, Miss Channing, of course." Ever heard of the musical Hello, Dolly? And there is a weird line in that song. "Well, hello, Stanley. Lose some weight, Stanley." My father was obese, and she wrote that line about my dad. My father never liked that and was never a fan of hers after that. He was so upset. But he had an impact. And because of that, I started to learn a little bit about personal branding from these stories that I was told. Now, my book is the greatest personal brand story ever told. Would you like to know who I am referring to in the book? Anybody would like to know that? Okay, awesome. Stick with me. It's going to be a little jarring. Trust me, we're going to go on this journey together. How many of you have heard, if I say the name Jesus, you know who I'm talking about? Just you know who I'm talking about. Show of hands. If I say Jesus, you know who I'm referring to. Do you know what he's known for? Yes? You know what he's known for? And as Nona says, do you know what book he's associated with? Because we're in an author group, right? If you remove religion, Christianity, any of that from that story, if you just look at the personal branding of Jesus, he's got the trifecta. You know who he is, you know what he stands for, and he's got a book. That's amazing. Now, I talk about in my book about developing brand legacy, having that IP that lives beyond you. I think we can all agree that there is a legacy of Jesus that's stood the test of time. And things that you might not know. Number one, according to the Bible, he only developed his personal brand for 3 years. That's it. From when he started to when he died, it was a 3-year span. Number two, he had no technology to help him. There was no TikTok, there was no Twitter, there was no Insta, there were no emails. You couldn't even do a direct mail. He did all that in 3 years with no technology. Imagine what you can do today with the same foundational elements, with the technology and the things that we have available now. All of us in this room have an area of genius, and all of us can make a huge impact on our communities. I'm going to go back to my dad again for a second. So, in 1974, he purchased licensing, thank you, Pamela, for a now defunct brand called Less on Drugs in the city of Chicago. And you probably, I don't know if you remember it, very, very long time ago. He set up this store, and he worked it for 12 years. And then he sold the brand. That store is still on that corner in Franklin Park today. That community still talks about my dad. 50 years later, with Walgreens and Rite Aids and CVS's, there was still that impact. And one of the things that my dad would always say to me, and to my brother and sister, because it was a family business, so we all had to work it. I'm looking at Nona too. And one of the things he always said is, your focus is the customer in front of you. Your focus is the customer in front of you. Now, we've talked a lot about, and I feel like we've talked around it a lot, and I want to be very, very clear about your personal brand. Your personal brand is not about you. Your personal brand is not about you. We've heard also about knowing who you serve, what problem you serve, what results you get. Those three things, number one, are focused on the customer in front of you. It's not about what a great job you do. It's not about the things that you do. It's about who I serve, how I can help that person get to their success point, and how I can help them get to the results that they're looking for. It's about that other person. So when I think about how my dad served in the community, and again, the legacy that he left with that personal brand, I also think that's right. It's about the value that I'm bringing to my community, and ultimately, it's about the trust they have in me helping them solve their problems. So again, not about me, it's about them. Now, I've read it once that if you're on a train going to a wrong destination, you should get off at the next stop. Because the longer you ride the train, the more expensive it is to get back to the destination you wanted to get to. I suspect they weren't talking about trains. They were talking about life. There are a lot of times where we sometimes fall back and we focus on ourselves. And you might argue, well, it's my personal brand. Of course I want to make it about me. So let's look at some examples of going to the wrong direction and missing that opportunity. Colt talked about Volkswagen and how Volkswagen wanted to have the best emissions tests, and they forged their data, and they lost 40% of their share. They first of all made it about their accolades, and they missed that they just blew up the trust factor of their brand. Look at Boeing. Back in the day, pilots would say, and I'm not rhyming on purpose, if it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. That's how much they believed in their brand. That's how much pilots believed in the safety of the brand. Did you know on Kayak now you can search and you can remove Boeing planes from your search? And Kayak didn't just do that for fun. It became a requirement that people were saying, I don't want to fly on those planes because I don't want to fall from the sky. Again, there's a trust factor that we miss. And it's so easy when we think about our brand, if we make it about us, we can lose that trust that we've built. We can lose that trust that we have fought so hard for. I was telling Nona yesterday, she was asking me, what's that one vendor you said I should send someone to? And I had had a really bad experience with him just a few weeks before, and it blew up our trust. And I said, oh, no, don't use him. I can't trust him. It's that quick that you can lose it. And that's someone I'd worked with for 15 years. And he made the interaction about him. And in that miss, the relationship was gone. Now, Ed made a really awesome comment yesterday that I absolutely loved, and I want to add to, and it's what I want to leave you with. He said, it's not me, it's we. Instead, what I want you to think about when you are having those relationships, when you are focused on that customer, it's not about me, it's we. And it starts with thee. Thank you.